A very good afternoon to everybody. Thanks for clicking on to the Saturday Tropical Outlook. Hope you're all well wherever you are today. Before we continue with the video, be sure to hit that like button, share with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel. I do greatly appreciate the amount of views and new subscriptions in recent times. It certainly is helping support myself and my channel. And interesting times to come within the global weather pattern. We do have the onset of the Indian monsoon. We will look at that in tomorrow's live stream at 4 p.m. We'll also be looking at other aspects taking place on a global scale. We're also going to look at the Vegetation Health Index. It's a new set of charts that I discovered in a video in recent times, and I'm going to be looking at that in a bit of detail tomorrow on the live stream and discuss that, looking at the change in satellite derived vegetation across the planet, UK, Ireland, Europe, elsewhere, the change between what we've got now compared to this time last year, and always trying to look at new things and discuss new things and different perspectives, I think is a very important thing. But let's get right into it. Obviously, tropics is going to be the main discussion today, but I want to first and foremost, as always, discuss the latest with regards to the developing La Nina. This is the current CDAS, sea surface temperature anomaly, based on the 1981 to 2010 climatology. You can see here that we continue to see record warm waters within the tropics of the Atlantic. We've also got the onset of a developing La Nina. Its progress is kind of slightly slowed down actually in recent times, which is rather interesting. So we do officially have ENSO neutral conditions, so it's neither El Nino nor La Nina. But I think as we go through the course of the next several months, we are going to see the waters continuing to cool in Nino region, the all important Nino region 3.4, but also Nino region 1.2, and we will continue to see these waters cool, and that then tends to have a reflection of higher pressure sinking air over the eastern equatorial Pacific, and with the combination of that with warm waters over the tropical Atlantic, that tends to drive rising air over the tropical Atlantic when you've got the La Nina and the sinking air over the East Pacific. So therefore, it tends to increase the chance of tropical cyclone activity, and that is why we tend to find that during La Nina years you average around 17 named storms. During El Nino years you tend to have only around 14 named storms, or 11 named storms, because the average is around 14 per year in the Atlantic. So El Nino years 11, and La Nina years tends to be around 17 named storms. So it is going to be an interesting season, that's for sure. There's been a lot of hype, a lot of chat with regards to a hyperactive season. It remains to be seen whether we see a hyperactive season, but certainly there is a lot of reason to believe that this is going to be a busy year. Whether it has an impact on any given area remains to be seen, but certainly numbers suggest that given the ocean and the atmospheric profile and projections going forward, we are likely to see quite an active and busy season. So we are seeing some subtle changes in terms of the warm versus cold anomalies within both the Pacific and the Atlantic basin. You notice here that we're starting to cool waters around the UK, and just the west here we've got a little bit of a horseshoe of warmth extending from just the south of the Baffin Straits through the Azores down towards the Canaries and then across towards the eastern Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. Very, very warm waters here. We've got temperatures as high as 31 Celsius or 88 degrees Fahrenheit within the Gulf of Mexico at the moment. We've got warmth within the Caribbean Sea and deep warm waters as well. Exactly how warm the ocean is one thing, but how deep that warmth extends in below the surface is another thing here. And this is an interesting way to look at it. Ocean heat content is quite important to look at here. You can see here the kind of yellowy, orangey, even red colors here show that we've got the water temperatures generally. If we look at this chart here, you've got current sea surface temperatures of around the 29 to 30 Celsius mark. So that level of warmth extends deeper when you look at this chart here. So essentially that 29, 30 Celsius waters, it shows you here when you've got the yellows, it represents a depth down towards, say, 80 to 100 meters below the surface. Now, tropical systems feed off warm water, but sometimes when they have a slow movement, uh, these tropical systems tend to upwell colder water from deep below the surface to the surface, and that can actually have a weakening element to the actual machine, the mechanism itself that drives these tropical systems. Once these systems enter waters where you've got 29, 30, 31 Celsius water that extends all the way down below 100 meters below the surface, that means that systems are not upwelling cold waters. It's actually fueling and driving the system forward here because it's actually driving and tapping warm water from deep below the surface. Hope that makes sense. But essentially, ocean heat content is quite an important aspect to look at when it comes to strengthening of tropical systems. And you notice here through the Caribbean itself into the southern and central Gulf of Mexico, that is essentially where your loop current is. You've got a warm water current that runs through the Caribbean between the Yucatan and the western tip of Cuba, tends to loop, hence why it's called a loop current, within the Gulf, through the Florida Straits, and then up the eastern side of Florida and the eastern side of the United States. And you can actually see a very, very faint little light color. That is essentially the Gulf Stream. And when systems run over top of that Gulf Stream, they tend to have enhanced fuel for development and strengthening of systems. So anyway, back to El Nino just for a little second here. So you can see here, these are the current sea surface temperature anomalies here. But how are we looking with regards to the La Nina? Nino region 1.2, you can see here that we went from neutral in early May down towards around what kind of bouncing around the kind of -1 below average here. Then as we look at the all-important Nino region 3.4, interestingly enough, we have went from over a degree above average down close to average, hence why we're at neutral at the moment with regards to the El Nino La Nina situation. Now, this is a new update from NOAA, the CPC ENSO probabilities. So NOAA basically saying that neutral conditions are currently present. La Nina is favored to develop. Sorry about that. La Nina is favored to develop during the July-September period. So we've got a 65% chance of that happening, and is likely to persist into the Northern Hemisphere winter, with an 85% chance during the November through January period. This is a final El Nino advisory, and a La Nina watch remains in effect. So, so we are going to continue to see the La Nina develop probably over the upcoming summer and upcoming hurricane season, and we'll continue to monitor that in quite a bit of detail as we go forward. So, let me just see here real quick. Let's have a quick look at the current North Atlantic sea surface temperature at the moment here. So this isn't the anomalies, these are the current temperatures, and you can see here that we've still got relatively cool waters around the Cape Verde Islands at the moment here off the African coast. Now, what is going to happen is a lot of our waves that are, atmospheric waves that are crossing over the tropical region of Africa. They're moving quite far south at this moment in time here over those warm waters that are around 27 to 29 Celsius. You notice here that as we progress over the next 4 to 8 weeks, what we're going to see is the intertropical convergence zone, the the area of conversion winds that they tend to allow African waves to cross over the continent, out over the Atlantic. That is going to progress northwards over the next few weeks here. And what will happen is these waters up in a line between Cape Verde and the Caribbean, this essentially this 27, 28 Celsius waters is going to then migrate northwards along with the ITCZ. You can see here that we've got water temperatures, like I've said already, 29, 30 Celsius through the Caribbean, but we've got some very, very juicy water at the moment here, 29, 30, even 31 Celsius within the Gulf of Mexico. And when you look at the ocean heat content, you've got that warm water deep below the surface, extending 100, even 125 meters below the surface here. So ample fuel for these systems to tap into. So looking at the current situation with regards to the infrared satellite image here, we've got an area of thunderstorms across the northern plain states at the moment. We're going to see an area of high pressure really build over the next week or so across the central and eastern United States. We are going to see a run of low to mid, even upper 90s between Florida and New England. So we are going to be talking about a very, very hot air mass developing over the eastern United States in the coming week here. What that will do is it's going to actually start to change the orientation and transport of moisture out of South America, Central America, northwards here. In recent times, like we've seen flooding upwards of 20 inches of rain falling within a 24, 48, even 72-hour period, anywhere from Sarasota across to Miami. We've seen some major flooding taking place. What we've seen is a bit of a hose pipe of moisture extending from Central America across the Yucatan, across western Cuba, into Florida, and extending up the eastern seaboard here. Essentially what this is doing is this moisture is running an old frontal system here. This is a frontal boundary that seen a cold front moving southeastwards. What you've got is moisture running along that frontal system here. But you notice the quite widespread nature of moisture at the moment here blowing up. Nothing organized, nothing really to write home about with regards to any development at this very moment in time. But as we progress through the upcoming work week, we are keeping an eye on a couple of things. We are expecting some sort of potential development within the Bay of Campeche as moisture builds northwards over the next wee while. So as an area of high pressure starts to build eastwards over North America, what we are going to see is this moisture over Central America begin to lift northwestwards here. Still high and dry across Mexico. We have seen some relief over Central America, over the Yucatan of Mexico as well, but it's still taking a little while to see enough weakening within this ridge of high pressure over Mexico to allow moisture to then start to push into drought-stricken central and northern Mexico. In terms of a unfavorable environment, we're looking at the current situation in terms of Saharan dust. So we do have a fair amount of dusty air that has migrated off the Sahara across the Atlantic and now extending into the Caribbean at the moment. We've also got some dusty air over the central and northern Gulf of Mexico, off the east coast of the United States as well here. So this is having somewhat of a tempering effect, kind of drying out some of the moistness in the air. But what is going to happen is we are going to start to see, notice here that we've got some relatively moist air, hence why we've got the thunderstorms at this moment in time across parts of Honduras, Belize, Nicaragua, into the Yucatan Peninsula here at the moment. This is why we've not got an awful lot of convection over the central and northern Gulf, is because we've got Saharan dust and dry, dusty air in this general vicinity. We've also got that through the Caribbean Sea at the moment here. It's only the moisture is largely confined to the South American mainland and Central America. So you can see here the areas that are void of convection at the moment: Gulf of Mexico, Central and Eastern Caribbean. You can see that we have got some fairly dusty air present in these areas here. The areas that are seeing convection, we don't have so much in the way of dusty air. This is the latest water vapor image here, showing the dryness of the atmosphere over the central and northern Gulf of Mexico, southern United States as well, central and eastern Caribbean here. So the kind of the darker the color, the drier the air mass is. The lighter the colors, the more moistness we have within the atmosphere. So I want to show you something here in terms of the MJO. Now, at this very moment in time, we do have some enhanced upward motion through the northern portions of South America, and specifically within the Central America region here, extending up towards the Gulf of Mexico. Notice something here as we progress through the next several days. You notice here that we enhance that area of upward motion, but also slightly further north. So essentially, things are coming together for the potential of a development. What we've got is we've got enhanced upward motion within the Central American region, the Americas. We've got an active phase of the MJO rotating through this region, and essentially what that is going to do is it's going to start to enhance the chance of seeing some of that moisture lifting out of Central America up through the northwestern Caribbean and into the Gulf of Mexico here. So we've got the large scale favorability within the atmosphere for something building here. So you notice here that we have these prominent greens right over, extending out of Central America up into the United States at the moment, and therefore that is indicating that we are going to start to see a more widespread area of tropical moisture developing. We've seen that over the past week or so here since the last update last Saturday. We've seen the MJO pulse entering this region. We've started to see a more greater expanse of tropical moisture, and that is likely to continue as we progress through the upcoming working week here. So it is about to get rather interesting when you look at the MJO pulse and also the overall pattern within the United States as that area of high pressure migrates across the continent. It then essentially opens the door. The steering flow then allows that moisture to start lifting northwestwards towards the east coast of mainland Mexico, and also possibly up into the United States as well here. So let's take it a step further. Let's have a look and see what we're looking at with regards to the overall moisture situation here. If we look at let me just get to the right appropriate chart. Let's have a look and see what we are looking at. Sorry about this, folks. Just bear with me a second. So let's have a look and see at the North Atlantic view here. So this is the overall steering situation here going forward. I'll have a look. Bear with me a second here. So I want to show you firstly the upper air height anomaly pattern, and let's go back to the here now. Sorry about this. And you can see here the overall situation. So this is the 500 millibar geopotential height and normalized anomaly. And you notice here that we've got relatively higher pressure over the Caribbean at the moment. We've got a little bit lower pressure within. This is obviously at 18,000 feet above the surface here. But you notice here that we've got a little bit of lower heights here across the northeastern Gulf. So we've obviously had a lot of moisture getting lifted northeastwards here out of the Western Caribbean, across Western Cuba, into South Florida, where we've seen tremendous amounts of rainfall in recent times. Now you notice here that this is as of Thursday of last week. You can see here that we've had the above average heights across the central and eastern, but the majority of the Caribbean basin has seen a fairly strong high pressure. We've had lower pressure across the northeastern Gulf, across the Florida Peninsula, and off the southeast Atlantic coast here. and that is essentially where the moisture has been running in this general line from Cancun to Miami and up the eastern side of the United States here. As we play forward here, watch what happens. We start to see the height field starting to change. Now, this is as of today, Saturday the 15th of July. And you notice here that we have got low heights extending from the Yucatan through Florida and up the eastern side of the country at the moment. We've got a trough in place over the northeastern United States. The ridge is over the central United States, extending down towards northern Mexico, where we've seen exceptional heat in recent days. Now, notice here as we continue to play through this loop, we are continuing to lower heights over the northwest Caribbean into the central Gulf of Mexico here. So as that MJO pulse continues to build within this region, we're starting to see heights coming down, and that is going to start to open the door to moisture build up here. Notice also that we've got that area of high pressure now beginning to start to slide eastwards, and as we continue to play through the next several days, you notice here that the high is moving eastwards over the lower 48. There's that negative now starting to kind of lift northwestwards, and that then means that we could start to see a pile up of air within the Bay of Campeche at the moment, and therefore we are going to start to see the potential of a circulation developing within this region of the west southwestern Gulf of Mexico. The question is, if it develops, where does it go? Does it go into Mexico? Does it go up towards Texas? There would be a reason to believe that it may start to move kind of northwestwards as the center of the high over the eastern United States moves towards the eastern two-thirds of the country here. So that then opens the door, the steering flow around the area of high pressure. Remember that as we're building moisture in this region with the MJO, we are also going to start to see that movement lift northwestwards towards the northeastern portions of Mexico and up towards Texas. Looking at the wind shear situation here also is quite important to look at. So this is the 200 to 850 millibar wind shear probabilities here. So if we're back to the here and now, you can see that we have got some relatively strong winds, a lack of wind shear over the areas that are seeing strong convection at the moment here through Central America. We've got the relatively strong winds exiting Texas across the northern Gulf through Florida and up the eastern seaboard here. We've also got some fairly strong winds over the Atlantic basin at the moment as well. So any areas of wave activity is well to the south, if you notice here, of this strong westerly wind flow within the mid to upper levels of the atmosphere. Now, as we continue to play through this sequence, if you're wanting to see some sort of development, you would want to start to see winds relaxing within the western Gulf of Mexico. And you notice here that the model is picking up on something here, a little circulation developing just off the northwest coast of the Yucatan here. We've got some fairly strong winds, if you notice, across the northern and northeastern Gulf of Mexico. But you notice that we're starting to see a lack of wind within the western portion of the Gulf of Mexico here. So therefore, the model is sniffing out something within the western Gulf, trying to lift westwards towards northeastern Mexico or Texas here. So that is quite interesting to see. And notice here that we've got some fairly strong winds between 850 and 200 millibars here. Looking at the moisture situation here, and we'll have a look and see what the model is indicating. So we'll go back to the current situation here, and you notice that this is for tomorrow, for Sunday the 16th of June. Now, notice here that we've got a lot of, obviously a lot of convection here blowing up across Central America at the moment here. But as we play through this loop, keeping in mind everything that I've just said, you can see here that the model is sniffing out something, whether it be a depression, whether it be a weak tropical storm. Who knows? But there's that area of high pressure continuing to push eastwards as of Tuesday the 18th, and that will allow the door to open to something moving northwestwards here. But notice here that the GFS does not indicate a development of a surface low pressure system. It just has an area of large scale thunderstorms blossoming off the Yucatan into the Bay of Campeche and moving towards Texas. Now, obviously, different model runs are going to have different solutions and different movements, but nonetheless, it is quite interesting to see. Let's have a look and see what the ECMWF is indicating for the same time frame here. So let's go back to the initial period we'll go back to tomorrow and play through this loop. You notice here that we've got that area of high pressure at the surface now up towards the northeastern United States. There's that buildup of moisture here. Again, we're increasing the chance of thunderstorm activity exiting Central America, the Yucatan, and moving up into the northwestern side of the Gulf. Is it developing an area of low pressure? It looks as if the ECMWF is sniffing at a surface low developing here at 1002 millibars by the time we reach Tuesday the 18th of June here, but nothing really particularly organized. You notice here that we're not developing much of a closed circulation here, and then as we move towards the middle portions of next week, it is again like the GFS driving some tropical moisture up towards the upper Texas coast here, but nothing overly organized. And then as we move towards the middle portions of next week, it does develop another secondary feature here, and it takes it into the upper Mexico coast here. This would certainly help drive a little bit more moisture up into this region that has been so parched in recent times. But it doesn't look as if the ECM or the GFS is indicating anything significant. But you notice here, by the time we reach Thursday of next week, it does have a weak feature along the east coast of Mexico here. But obviously, with the MJO pulse becoming more prominent, we are going to see a northward progress of the moisture as that high continues to spread eastwards over the lower 48 of the United States here, and therefore we are likely to see a significant increase in moisture. Speaking of that, let's have a look and see what the total accumulated precipitation is for this region. Let's go back to the current pattern. You can see here the evolution of moisture transport northward. So this is the current situation up until tomorrow, 16th of June. We've got a lot of moisture through parts of Central America up into the Yucatan Peninsula and also the central and northeastern Gulf of Mexico. That is the recent rains that had fallen along that frontal system. Remember, I made mention of the frontal boundary and the tropical moisture hose piping from the Yucatan through Florida and up the eastern side of the United States. Now, as we play through this loop, you notice the buildup of moisture, an increase in moisture aimed at the Texas coast here in particular. Notice here that that moisture is continuing to spread westwards as the high then moves eastwards over the lower 48 here, and it's driving some fairly decent moisture into very, very drought-stricken central and northeastern areas of Mexico here. Still quite dry up across the northwestern portions of Mexico, but nonetheless, this is an improvement on what we've seen in recent times. Let me see what else I can show you. This is off the ECMWF. This is Tropical Storm Frequency Extended Range Forecast. A little bit difficult to see, but this is day 4 through 10 in terms of the ACE. This is accumulated cyclone energy, and it is indicating that for the Atlantic Basin, I know it's very difficult to see, but it's a 2.7 versus the 1.0 climatological average. So it's indicating that we are likely to increase the chance of seeing a named storm within the western portion of the Gulf of Mexico over the next 4 to 10 day period. Notice here that over the Western Pacific Basin, we have got 0.7 versus 1.0, so we've actually got below average probability of development within the western portion of the Pacific Basin at this moment in time. This is another interesting way to look at things here. If I can try and find it, that is, because there is a heck of a lot of maps here, but this is the ECMWF suite of models, and I came across something that I wanted to show you, and this was with regards to the probability of a development within the Atlantic Basin over the next little while here. It just depends on whether I can find it or not. That is the only thing. And I'll probably end with this one here, but I thought this was quite interesting to see. Just bear with me a little bit of a second here, folks. I do apologize. I may or may not find this. So don't know if I'm going to find it, but it actually shows you the increased probability of development within the western Gulf of Mexico over the next week to 10 days here. So it's increasing the chance of something showing up. But unfortunately, I cannot find it. If I can find it, I will try and show you. And also, if we do have an increased chance of development this upcoming work week, I will probably do a tropical outlook during the course of the week. So stay tuned for that. Let me just see if I've got anything else to show you. This is the actually the ECMWF weekly precipitation anomaly here. So this is a global view, a little bit messy. I do apologize for that, but this is the upcoming week. So this is the period between the 17th and the 24th of June. And you can see here that we have got above average precipitation expected over the central and western Atlantic Basin. But specifically, so what stands out in terms of the global picture is look at the increase in moisture over parts of southern Mexico, eastern Mexico, the western Gulf. In fact, the majority of the Gulf is indicating over the next the period between the 17th and the 24th, significant increase in moisture. As we go into week 2, you can see here that we diminish that. We start to see an increase in moisture, but across the Gulf Coast of the United States here. But notice here that the upcoming week is quite notable in terms of increased rainfall. It's actually probably got the greatest anomaly anywhere on the planet this upcoming work week for parts of Central America, extending up towards northeastern Mexico and the western Gulf of Mexico as well. So quite interesting stuff. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope it was relatively easy to understand. Let me know in the comment section below. Are you enjoying these tropical outlooks? I would greatly appreciate your feedback. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope you can join me for the live stream tomorrow at 4 p.m. looking at all things global. Like, share, and subscribe. See you tomorrow with more. Bye for now.